Hello everybody, Tom here from Enactus UK. Hope you're all doing well. I'm not sure if there is anyone else here, so what would be helpful for me is if you are a participant with this, could you put a message in the chat just to say that you're there? I'm having to go from one screen to another just to see your comments, so it would be useful for me if you are present just to drop a message. Hi. Cool. We're just going to wait a few minutes before we move forward with the webinar, just in case anyone else wants to join. Okay, just going to do a quick sound check with you guys. So if you can hear me, can you type yes on the chat? Perfect. That's a good start. All right, then we'll crack on, and anyone else who kind of wants to join can tag along. All right, as you can see here, we've got the amazing resource center that's been created by Enactus UK. So basically today, we're going to run through the refreshers pack that we put together over the last month. The reason that we did that is to support you guys with your refreshers and your strategy for doing so. So this webinar, basically I'll go through the different resources that we have with just, a little bit of description around it. I'll try not to take too long on each section. Really, we want this to be about half an hour long, and then the rest of the time we can have for Q&A, which might be more specific to your teams and your situation. So first things first, we're on the resource center. I'm sure you all know how to get onto there. If you don't, just type in Enactus Resource Center and this will come up, log in, and then from there, you need to go on to Student and then scroll down and click on to Training Modules. And then hopefully you have faster Wi-Fi than I do, and it will come much quicker. Great. So then you'd scroll down and you'd notice that we have an Enactus module there, which is quite interesting, and also PMI, PMI project management tool thing that you can use, which is pretty cool. And then you'll see the building the recruitment strategy. So if you click on that, it shall take you to where all the resources are. Okay. So here it is. So these are the 4 stages, and in each one of these tabs, there are different resources in relative to each one. So preparation, outreach, engagement, and retention. Now, there should be a summary sheet right here, but there isn't. But that's my Wi-Fi fault. So I'm just going to refresh that. Okay. Awesome. And there it is. Okie dokie. Yeah, if that ever happens to you and you think there's something that's supposed to be there, just refresh it. That's the trick. Okay. So this here is the summary of each one of those sections. Quite nicely laid out. So what I'm going to do is just run through each one of these 4 stages and then click on each one of the resources that kind of goes along with it. So I guess before you do anything with your recruitment strategy, you want to be able to prepare and do as much as possible. So when it comes to actually you guys meeting up, you've already done some things beforehand. So it's a good time to reflect on your previous kind of position this year and how well it has worked. So within each role, has it been an effective role that was created? You know, the structure that we have, we encourage teams to stick with, but you might want to look into having maybe more marketing members to support with the marketing campaigns that you do. It's a really, really big part of the Enactus society is getting other members on board. So your presence needs to be very obvious. Okay. And also thinking about your support network as well. You actually have quite a variety of different people. You obviously have the external sponsors and thinking about how they can support with your recruitment. But you've also got your internal too. So your SU, they have channels that you may want to get some social media out to them so they can post across to engage with more students. One that I used whilst I was president of UE was the accommodations channel. They were a little bit reluctant, but through a little bit of persuasion, they posted on there, and it was a really good way of getting the message of Enactus and when we were doing our intro event out to them. So it's something to consider as well. So following that, we have the 5-week recruitment plan, which some of you may know from doing the summer action. A good resource for breaking down what you're actually going to do. So you can see that the first point here really is kind of reflecting on the roles and if there needs to be kind of new roles created for the future, or maybe ones reduced. And here thinking about your support network and who can benefit you with that, and then collating all of that and putting it into the 5-week recruitment plan. So I'm just going to click on each one of these so you can see them. If you have any questions, by the way, just type them into the chat, and I will just switch to read the chat now and again, just to check, because I will be just rolling straight through all of these. Either put it in the chat or write it on a piece of paper and then ask me at the end. Okay. Right. Yeah. So here's a nice resource that was created, which kind of shows you what we class as maybe the ideal structure. But what would be good for you guys is to look at this structure and fill it in yourselves. Put your names in for each role that person filled. But also maybe thinking about adding some comments somewhere. That could be some learning for the new person coming in, or, you know, as I said, with the marketing, you know, the marketing lead, could there be 2 marketing leads? Could they be in 2 different areas, one in physical marketing, one in social media marketing? So just thinking about that and thinking about your structure. So have a look at this, it's quite nice. Close that one, and then we pop back. Support network, yeah, I suggest again, you know, this is very much just to help you think about the different support networks. Very, very simple, but again, think about how you can utilize these resources. So, I mean, yes, you know, once you've read that, it seems very clear, but how could you use this? So I'd say right next to each one of those points, how they could help you with your recruitment strategy, and then using that, build it into your 5-week recruitment plan, which is here, which I will click on. Cool. Yeah. So it's got a good thing here, which is the membership grid. Just again to help the reflection. Each committee member or project lead, be good for them to fill out each section with their role in. Again, beneficial for the new people coming in and thinking about what kind of attributes you want from these people coming into the role. And yeah, here's a simple kind of template that you can fill out to what your strategy would be. Again, useful tool. You know, these tools are here to be used, but you may have your own ones that you use already. So that is also fine. Okay, we're going to go on to the next section now, which is outreach. So I mentioned briefly about kind of the social media and engaging with as many students as possible through the channels that you have. But it's thinking about, well, what actually is that going to look like? And thankfully, we have a nice resource pack that has been created, which I'm going to click on straight away because I think it's quite cool, which is promotional material. And so this has got all of the icons in and different material that you can use to create your own stuff. There's some examples in here as well. So there's leaflet examples. Again, I won't open up all of these, but what I will do is pop back and just show you. So remember that this is the summary sheet, and the summary sheet is the kind of first thing that you see here. But within here are all of the resources that I've been clicking on. So they're in each one of these sections. Within the outreach one, you'll see at the bottom that there is the material that I'm talking about, with videos and icons you can use as well, and the Enactus logos. So it's all here, very accessible. And I definitely recommend creating your own stuff. Personalize it. It makes you as a society stand out much more. So back onto this. Cool. Yeah. With how to pitch Enactus, you know, that's a really key part of, you know, engaging and outreaching. So when you have a stand, what are people going to be saying? You know, that makes a massive difference to whether someone thinks that you're professional or not. And you really want to get those key messages across of why Enactus is important and why it's useful to someone. You know, it's not just the competition side of things, it's also creating projects that can change people's lives. You know, it's also the skills that you gain, team working skills, leadership skills, problem solving skills. And also, of course, the employability chances that you get from this stuff. So really highlighting that when you speak to someone for the first time. And also that it's a fun society to be a part of. Very important. No one wants to be a part of something that doesn't feel like a community. So these are all factors that you want to say. But within this resource, it says all of these different points. It's quite a big resource, this one. Really, really good, really useful. Worth spending a bit of time looking through. and it's almost like a bit of a cheat sheet for your recruitment plan, 5-week recruitment plan. So definitely have a look at this. And there's an example of flyers as well. Gosh, it is a cheat sheet, isn't it? Very good. Yeah. So, and again, we've got an example here of an introductory event that you could base yours on as well. Again, personalize your own things, and it's nice for for the marketing people to be creating stuff like this. It's good stuff, and if they've got all the material they need to, they're going to get a head start with these things. This is what we use for the University of the West of England, which is my uni. And I believe this is the one that I used. Expect my name's in here somewhere. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so very, very simple. And you want to always think about the message that you're putting across, and you want to keep it short and sweet and concise. You've got time later on to be explaining the real deep details of Enactus, but at the end of the day, you want to be putting across what the benefits are, as I've highlighted earlier. So we'll get off this one and we'll keep moving forward. Okay, yeah, so that's really the outreach. Yeah, just think about how you are outreaching and what it looks like when you're doing it. You know, professionalism is really key here. And oh yeah, especially when you're doing top tip there. Always check out the top tips on these slides too. So make sure you do these lecture shout outs. They are definitely the best way to engage with a mass of people, and it's good for your presentation skills as well to be doing these things. It is a little bit scary, but at the same time, this is what you need to be doing in life. Full stop. Is putting yourself out of your comfort zone a bit. Once you do one, you'll feel good from doing it, and you'll want to do another one. And all you have to do is approach a lecturer or message them and say, can we have 5 or 10 minutes before your lecture? And they'll give you that space to do so. And actually, it's a good way for them to know about Enactus too. So it's all good stuff. So moving on, we're now moving into the engagement bit. Cool. So you've managed to recruit some people, which is good. So people will come on board from doing your outreach, but they're not fully members yet, and they're not fully committed. So I think one of the key things here is thinking about, you've got these people in, but they need to start doing something, and they need to have a role. And so you may have recruited specific people for specific roles, which is great. And then you'll start to kind of look at what they need to know about the role. So here we've got the role descriptions, and what's quite interesting about this resource too is it's not just, oh, the team leader does this, and the attributes of them is that. It actually has like the day-to-day. So it is a little bit of a lengthy document, but it's got some interesting points that's worth looking at here around responsibilities. And as I've kind of pointed out, like what the day-to-day would look like. Yeah, what the day-to-day could look like for that person in the role. So again, this is not a hugely detailed document, but it's useful for new members coming in to read stuff like this, especially if they're applying for one of these committee roles. But then you may have had a really, really successful recruitment, and you may have got more people than you think you need. And then often I've heard, oh, we don't want to have more people than we can have a role for. But I always say, well, actually, you can create roles for these people. So, if you've got 10 people more than you thought that you needed, don't turn them away. Use them. Get them to start to create a new project. Why couldn't they be a project team together? Let them go through the process of doing it. we've created a really good resource for that. So I've just clicked on it here, which is the online modules. Oh, look, there's Callum there. That's nice. Callum's not with us anymore, which is a shame. But anywho, so this is a nice process, a fairly simple process that a team could follow to create a project. So as I said, you've got new members in, not sure what role to put them in, get them to start a project. That's probably the reason why they came into it anyway. And so what you want to be doing is helping them to identify their passion around social entrepreneurship. So who actually do they want to be helping? What is it that drives them? Do they want to be getting homeless people off the streets? Do they want to be changing the mindsets of our society around migrants? You know, what is it? What is it that they're really passionate about? And something that that is within this, I won't spoil it. I won't click on any of them. It's worth looking at. You know, it talks about the United Nations Sustainability Goals, and that's a really good way for teams to have a kind of grounding on why they're creating a project, creating a project around reducing food hunger or poverty. You know, and that's the basis of the project. And then looking into, okay, so what charities are working and organizations are working in this area, and then moving forward into a needs assessment, and then doing that with your beneficiary group that you've decided that you want to work with, and also going into ideation following that, and then creating an actual business model canvas from it. So you've got the process there. I encourage people to go into that. I created it, so I am a little bit proud, but at the same time, this is a really, really good process for doing it, and it gives teams autonomy as well. So you want to encourage a little bit of that. Yes, you know, you need to be guiding the teams a little bit, but here is the resource for them to create a project from start to at least get to a business model phase. So I won't spend any more time on that because I could probably talk about it all day. All right, we'll close that one. We'll get back onto our summary sheets. So it's also really important to have best practice, and you want to be encouraging people to do that straight away. And so having effective meetings and recording them in the right way is really important, and that's the mindset that you want to be putting across straight away. You know, so for example, you have got this new team that I've been talking about, and they are meeting every week. You want to be asking them, you know, to be recording their minutes because you want to encourage them to be an organization, and a professional organization records minutes and is able to have effective team meetings. And in this resource here, I think it's got key examples of what could be within a meeting. Yeah. You know, so consider what kind of meeting that is. You know, if you had a meeting where you invited Andrew Bacon, CEO of Enactus UK, he may not be coming in. You know, there's no point asking him to come in and talk about employability opportunities. He might know some stuff, but he might be more suited to helping you with your kind of project planning and creating goals around that too. You know, so just think about what those meetings look like and what the purpose of them are. Cool. So worth having a look at this stuff. Cool, yeah. And delegating responsibilities. I guess if you don't do that, and it could be one of the like more challenging things for someone who has been in the role for example, for 3 years, to start delegating jobs to someone else. So a vice president has been in the role for 3 years. They're very used to doing their job and doing, you know, the tasks within it. And so when it actually comes to supporting someone else who's now coming into the role, it may not be natural to them to think to pass a job on to someone because they'll know they'll be able to do it quicker. it's highly important that you start delegating as soon as possible, and it can be small things, but it could be things that um, maybe doesn't have a huge effect if it doesn't get done, or doesn't get done so well, but you need to be encouraging this person to um, and the person going into the role to take on these tasks, and to help them to feel good once they've done it. So I won't click on that one, but I think the delegating responsibilities is towards the end of that resource. It's, again, worth having a look at. So we're going to move on and go into the last section. How are we doing for time? Not bad, not bad. Okay. So retention. So it's really, again, so this is the sustainability of the team. This is a tough one because people do leave throughout the year, and it is a little bit frustrating. And something that I found within my role was that if people didn't have a clear role, they often didn't come back. They would come for a few sessions, but they didn't really know what they were doing. And the meetings, if they're not, if you meet up every single week and you're just stood there explaining stuff to people or asking them what have they done this week, what are you going to do next week, it's really boring, and you will lose members that way. Ideally, when you meet up every week, you want to have the first like 15 or first half an hour where everyone's together and you just give some updates on some of the things that are going on in the Enactus UK world. For example, ITC competitions, who's entering them, and stuff like that. Some opportunities, but you really want to just let the teams crack on, and give them a space to work on their projects. The committee is a project team in itself. They're the ones who are developing the strategy for the Enactus Society within the university. That's a project. The marketing team, that's a project, what they're doing. So they all need time to work on it. But that meeting that you have once a week, utilize it. Don't spend all your time talking. Spend most of that time actioning and doing. So that was a fair bit of a waffle then, but that's top tips from me about that. We have got some resources around this stuff. This is really important, and I think you want to be doing this before anyone leaves the society. So yeah, either people who are about to leave, it would be good to do a survey with them to find out how useful and what they got out of Enactus, and what you could learn from that. But also with the people who have just come in, you want to gauge if they're happy or not, and if this is fulfilling what they expected. So, and if it's not, then what can you do to change that? So this is really very much a committee thing to be reviewing and looking at. So yeah, I'll close that one. Have a look at this in your own time. Good resource. These are all great resources, just to, but make sure you have a bit of time to look through them, and seeing how they can be relevant for you. Very important here. So I mentioned right at the beginning that no one wants to join a society that is not fun. You've got to have that kind of team community feel, and bond, and that has to be developed. You don't just have it instantly. There are teams who have been around for a good while that don't struggle with this stuff, because they're able to hand over the kind of team identity and that team culture every time, because they practice it. They are positive. They talk about where they're going to be going, what the purpose is of them moving forward, what the values are of their society, and what they want to achieve this year and how they're going to do it. So yeah, looking at doing simple things like socials, super key. Here is a way of doing it, which is yeah, cost effective basically. So have a look in that one. So following all this stuff, you would start to look at doing a handover. Nice little thing there which says you can't spend forever in Enactus. That's not true. You can become an alumni mentor, then you can spend forever within Enactus as long as you're good. So I question that statement, but anyway, it is true. You can't stay within that society. So it's thinking about your responsibility here, and actually doing a really, really good handover is key. This is a full document on how you do it. I would suggest just having a quick skim over that one. We will be doing another webinar related to the handover. So have a little look over it. It is fairly detailed, but we've got some more resources that we're creating and doing another webinar. So hold tight for that one. You'll hear about that one soon. And kind of final point is best way to keep your members engaged and to fully understand and feel the experience of Enactus is to go to the National Expo. We don't just say this because we want people to get there. It is genuinely that feeling that you get when you watch your team or another team put so much enthusiasm and passion into their presentations. You know, it's not easy stuff, but you know, you're excelling students. That's why you're a part of Enactus. So this is the time for you guys to prove it. And even if you're not presenting, doesn't matter. Even if your team hasn't got through to that to the nationals, doesn't matter. Go there and experience it, because for one, you get to meet all of your support network and your network full stop, because this network doesn't stop here. This network continues when you become an alumni, and utilize it. I utilize it all the time. I drop messages in, you know, we've got a Facebook group, which is huge. It's full of, you know, hundreds of people. Utilize these people, make friends, make connections. You're entrepreneurs, you know, you're a part of an entrepreneurship society. So this is your chance to meet these people and spot the talent, you know, spot the people that you think, wow, that, you know, I want to be like that, or I want to be like this team. You know, you could be a first year that's just come in and you see a team up on stage who've just smashed it. You know, you want to be able to bring that back and encourage the team to be able to be like that. So get this in your diaries and get as many people there as possible to go to the National Expo, because that is one easy way to explain what Enactus is. All right. So that's it really for the resources that we've got within the Resource Centre. Yeah, so thank you very much for being a part of this. Good on you, I say. You're proactive about being about coming onto these things, which is a good sign. So I guess we'll move on to questions now. And instead of just writing them to me, you could unmute your little microphone, because I believe you can do that. But if you don't want to speak out loud, that's fine. You can just put it in the chat. But if you have some like general questions, then I can do my best to help. We've also got Liv here as well from Enactus UK. So she can also bring some super useful insight. So I'd say this is a good opportunity to, yeah, bring something to the table. It's all right. You all don't have to come at once. I'll wait patiently. Liv, have you got any questions for us or any thoughts? Oh, look, here we go, from Liv. Okay, so with student engagement, I guess it depends. Well, the key really here is to identify why that is. So um, if they're not turning up, it's not. It's you don't assume that it's because that they are someone who's lazy. I would say that it's very much you need to identify what that is. So this could be a good opportunity to use a survey. But I'd say look at yourselves and ask yourselves the question: Are we a fun, engaging society right now, or are we pushing people too hard to just work, work, work? I think there's kind of a few ways that you could look at that, but again, it's looking at what you think that you are right now. With this, you can do socials to encourage people to be a part of it. I would say you want to be adding as much value as possible to your members. So from the get-go, we work with some of the biggest UK organizations. So there's an opportunity there to be able to create events around them. They put on events. So looking at identifying some of these events that are happening, or creating an event and getting some of the sponsors to come in and do employability skills, get enterprise rent a car. They love doing all this stuff. They'll help you with their presenting skills. So think about how you can add value to your committee members instantly. But I would say that you have to identify what is missing or what they want, because they may not want that. They may want to know more about social entrepreneurship. Identify why they became a part of it. That's why doing that survey would be really, really useful after someone's come a couple of times to a meeting. Does that answer your question, Liv? And actually, Liv, do you have any other points that you would like to add to that?
No, thanks, Tom.
No worries.
That was really useful.
Cool.
Tom, have any of your teams held really good socials that have recruited people in the past?
Well, it hasn't necessarily helped with, or it wasn't a strategy for recruitment, but I can only speak from my own experience. Actually, no, I've got a couple, but I'll speak from my own experience to start with, which was Yui and Bath doing a social together. That was good. We went ice skating, and that was that was the one time where we had all of our members, and everyone had such a good time. And I think it's not getting too bogged down with your work and making sure that you do put time aside for that. And you need to start to build a bond with people within your society. To do that, you've got to not talk about work. You've got to talk about the human stuff. You are an organization as a society in a way, but you've got to be fun, and you've got to be able to speak to people like their friends outside of this. So building that community is really key. I was also just kind of thinking about a good way of getting more people together is doing an event and inviting people who are other teams, so other Enactus teams that are close by. So for example, if you did an event in Birmingham, one team planned to do an event in Birmingham, and inviting the other Birmingham teams to be a part of that, and then creating this kind of big event where you've got sponsors coming to do some training. So it's a really valuable event that looks good to anyone who's not even in Enactus, and it could be advertised externally too. And it could be a good way to get people to come along to what looks like an employability event, but actually it's a recruitment event for you guys too, to be able to get new members on board, because they're like, wow. And that just brings loads of opportunities that didn't even realize. So those are my kind of 2 examples.
Thank you.
No worries. All right. Have we still got people with us? Does anyone want to ask any other questions? You can just write it on the chat whilst I'm here. Good question, Natasha. Well, that's a good question, and I would say I don't know if there is an optimal, but I would say that there is a minimum. You know, I think meeting up once a week is the minimum. But I would also say that be wary about these meetings dragging on for too long. So so if you have a meeting at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you want them to finish at a certain time that you say it's going to finish at that time. I made the mistake of having meetings that dragged on for too long, and we were exhausted by the end of it. And I don't think that was particularly good for team culture. But I think that if people want to create projects and businesses in the real world, you don't just spend a couple of hours a week on it. I mean, that's nothing. You're not going to get anything done. So realistically, you want to be spending as much time as possible that doesn't affect your studies on creating this stuff, because it's a driving force. So you want to be able to have a good communication channel between you guys, and be speaking all the time about this stuff, and having meetings where you're doing. I highlighted this earlier. You're doing stuff rather than just planning, because if you keep planning, you leave people to do things in their own time. People don't do these extra things in their own time. It's unlikely. So use that meeting for getting stuff done. So that's also worth considering about your time of when you do your meeting. So if you needed to phone some organizations to find out how they support a beneficiary group, and what they think of your project idea, you're not going to be able to do that at 5 o'clock and 5 p.m. But you want people to be doing stuff in those meetings. So maybe sometimes moving, or thinking about when that meeting is. I know with university it's not that flexible so much, but things like that often just don't get done because it's left to someone to do in their own time. And if they're not driven enough and passionate about the project, they won't do it. I'm not sure if that answers your question. I've kind of not given you a full, a specific number on that one, but I think it's very dependent. I don't know if Liv, if you've got something to contribute on that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think you can ever put like an optimal number on this. Obviously, the more hours your team's willing to put in, the more you generally get done. But you are also at university to get a degree, not a degree in Enactus. So it's important to also find the right balance that you don't alienate your team members out of the team. But I think Tom's right that the optimum should be one meeting. At GCU, their minimum is so that you have to attend the team meeting and one other meeting with your project team or committee team outside of the whole team meeting. So different teams have different requirements. It's dependent on the time of year and what you've got going on as well.
Yeah, it's a good example. Thanks, Liv. That was pretty helpful. Thanks. No worries. Okay. Oh, a tough one. Liv's probably better at this than I am. I'm putting you on the spot, Liv.
Um, I think like the starting one we always use is it's about giving back to your community. It depends. This is where we always say it's really important to find out what they're studying in that first question. So when you first meet someone, it's like, oh, what do you study? Because if they say business, well, then they're looking for experience in creating businesses. Well, then we're an entrepreneurship society. If they study psychology, well, then they might be interested in mental health. And in that case, it's a entrepreneurship society that might work with projects to work on people's mental health. So it's about pulling out what that initial what subject they study so that you can target your pitch around it. But yeah, I think we always kind of say that it's when people ask me about it outside of work and outside of universities, I just say it's a student society that creates social projects that give back to the community both locally and internationally through working with like local charities and local people.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, no, I definitely follow on from that. Yeah, I mean, I normally go for the line of, if there was someone there, I'd say, are you passionate about making a change in this world? Or exactly what Liv was saying, are you interested in entrepreneurship? What is quite a good grab for people, because it's such a big thing at the moment, is plastic. So saying something around that, and saying something maybe, and not saying, because I think that maybe you might get a little bit, people, you need that one, that one sentence that's going to make the difference. That one sentence shouldn't be, Enactus is because people are just like, don't know what that is, I'm moving on. But if you say something that's going to grab them instantly, the hook, that could be slightly unrelated to Enactus, but it's got something to do with social change or making an impact in the environment. So, saying, do you care about the amount of plastic that there is in the world? They'll probably say yes. So you've hooked them. And then you can start talking and saying, we're an entrepreneurship society and we focus on creating projects around supporting our local community, international community, but also environmental projects too, where we look at reducing plastic. We've got an intro night that's coming up on blah, blah, blah day. It'd be really, really great if you came along, and getting their email address from there. But think about what that hook is. And that hook doesn't need to be an explanation of Enactus. The hook can be, yes, exactly what I said. Or go down the line of, so what do you study? And actually that's quite welcoming. And you will get an answer from that. So 2 different kind of methods there, but with the same result. Is that helpful? NJ? I'm not sure what your full name is. It might just be NJ. No worries. Which university are you 2 from? Is it Natasha from Coventry and NJ? What is your full name? Have. Cool. All right. Well, we've made, it's good for us to just know who has engaged, because we'll give you a little shout out and say thanks for joining. All right, guys. If you've got nothing more to ask, I'll give you a sec if you do have any more questions. Just give you a sec. Okay. Ooh, we can probably leave it that way. All right. Yeah, I think we're all good. Thank you very much for joining today. This has been recorded, so yes. So have another listen to it and send it to some of your team members if you want to. It's there forever. All right. Thank you very much, everyone.